All right, gamers, welcome to One More Game podcast, episode 12. It is 15 May 2022. I am your host, theStroke, and I am here with my good buddy, Swiftmida. Swift, what's up?
Not much, man. How's it going?
It's good. Yeah, just ready to talk about video games and, chat.
Did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Kind of did a lot of stuff around the house. Hung out with the fam, but nothing crazy. What about you?
Same. Literally, dude. These weekends are kind of my favorite these days. Now that I'm a grown person, the weekends that I have no plans, I just get to chill.
Yeah, spoken like a true introvert. I feel your pain. I feel you.
You're absolutely right.
Cool, man. Let's see. What do we got going on? All right, let's give everyone a little heads up here. So we're going to be talking about some serious stuff, but we'll keep it as light as is appropriate. But we're going to be talking about mental health this week. So we'll kind of get into what that's going to look like here in a minute. But just so you're aware and not taken off guard, but that's going to be the major topic for this week. But before we get into that, I gotta bring this up. So we're gonna be together IRL in a week or so. So
I know it's been way too long.
I know. We're at about a year now, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Cool. We're gonna be gaming while we're at the wedding.
Yeah, I'll probably. Like we love easy and all. I'll probably dip out of the wedding a little early to get some games in.
Yeah,
bring my laptop. We'll see what happens.
Let's get into that battle royale instead of how the end of a wedding reception kind of just devolves and
it just tapers off. Yeah. No, but I think when you and I were talking earlier, I think great point. We need to bring the Switch and I'll bring mine and get some Overcooked or whatever it happens to be together because the boys are back.
The boys are back together, and Switch Sports is out. Nintendo Switch Sports, so maybe we can get a little competitive bowling going on.
I love that.
Sweet, dude. Well, you got anything else you want to highlight about your flying week or anything going on in your world?
Nope.
All right. Well, with that said, we'll get rolling right into the news for the week. All right. And I just wanted to mention, if you're in the chat, thank you for joining us for our weekly podcast about video games. We are happy to have you, especially you loyalists. If this is your first time here listening or live in the chat, just hit that follow button. We really appreciate it. It helps us kind of grow and spread our message. But yeah. All right. First topic of the news for the week. One of our favorite games of the last 10 years, Elden Ring, right? It's finally dethroned Call of Duty in a 12-month period. So, and Elden Ring's been out for what, 2 months?
Yeah, since February. Dude, it's absolutely crazy.
So it's the first game in I don't know how many years that has sold more in a 12-month period than a Call of Duty title game.
And it's only been out for 2 months.
Right, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Just statistics-wise. But so right now, over the last 12 months, you're looking at Elden Ring, Call of Duty Vanguard, Madden, which blows my mind.
Yeah, that's weird.
The most recent Pokemon games, Diamond and Shining Pearl, Battlefield 2042. Whoops.
Yeah.
And then this one will maybe kind of get you excited to buy this game, but Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga, is sitting at number 6. So.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
Yeah. And that hasn't been out long.
No, that's also a recent.
Yeah. So might be good enough to try out, but cool.
Yeah.
Are you surprised by Elden Ring? I have no surprises, but.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of am. If it's based off of 12 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
The fact that it's been out for 2.5 months now, it surprises me that it has taken over Call of Duty, and then it doesn't, because like we talk about every week, the game is wonderful. It's beautiful. You know, like anything you can ask for in a video game, it's there.
Right.
But the fact that it has dethroned Call of Duty, which you would think all these people are playing Call of Duty still, but maybe not. Maybe there's a surge of people who are just getting over it, you know, and leaving the game. I don't know.
I mean, I will say that Vanguard, right? You didn't have to buy it to play Warzone, so that could kind of be contributing to it.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I'm definitely surprised that just 2 months of sales have toppled a game that, I mean, pretty much most people who play Warzone probably bought Vanguard to level their weapons. But
probably, yeah.
I'm kind of amazed that Elden Ring has been able to cross that gap that always existed with Souls games, because there were certain people that just never wanted to try them because they were so punishing and hard, right? Like you and I.
Like me. Yeah. Like me 2 months ago.
And so that's the market that they've tapped into finally, because they've created something that is so good that people are like, well, I know it's going to be hard, but I'm going to at least try it and then end up loving it. You know, 700 hours later, like some of our friends.
Right.
Cool, man. All right, let's move on to the next topic. More stats for you. So the Nintendo Switch has outsold the PS4 and is now the 4th best selling console in US history. What are your thoughts? Yeah. I wonder what that list looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, bottom line, it doesn't surprise me, right? The Switch is so versatile. To be able to, I mean, you can play you can play most of the games on there, plus all of the Nintendo exclusives. Plus, you can play them when you're sitting on the couch, you know,
right,
doing nothing. Not to say that your Xbox or PS4 or PS5 couldn't do that, but the fact that it's right there at your fingertips, it doesn't surprise me at all to see the Switch do so well. Because I mean, we've talked about it previously. It's an amazing console, if you even want to call it a console, right? I mean, it's not really a console, but it's awesome. It's great at what it does. Right. I guess is the bottom line.
No other company has done handhelds as good as Nintendo has, right? Game Boy and DS and Switch.
Right.
But with Switch being, I think Switch has a few things going for it, right? It's very non-committal, and when you purchase it, it kind of feels like it's less serious. You're not paying $500 for this thing. It's what, $300, I think, or a little bit less for the lights.
I don't know.
So the price point isn't as high. It's kind of fun and lighthearted, but then you can take it on the go and play it at your home. It's just a match made in heaven. And I'm looking at the list here. All right, you ready for the top sellers above Switch at this point?
Yeah.
What would be your guess for number one?
Probably Xbox, I guess.
No, PlayStation 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's kind of crazy. I didn't expect that, but I guess so.
I don't know. That was the kind of the resurgence of like Crash Bandicoot and
right. The God of War games.
God of War started then. I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot more that I just don't remember. But
yeah, I think a lot of people that was during the launch of Xbox. So I think a lot of people were kind of iffy about committing to something that was that new. So they knew that PlayStation, had a good track record. So they just sold 155 million copies and counting. Yikes. Cool. Nintendo DS is number 2.
Okay.
That makes sense to me because every child in 2005 had one of these. Every single child.
Yeah.
I used to work at one of my jobs was like after school daycare, watching elementary school kids until their parents could get them. And every single kid had a DS that you constantly try to get them to stop playing.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. I never had. I mean, I was a junior.
Yeah.
In high school at that point, so I never had anything past. For Nintendo, it goes basically Nintendo 64 for me, and then the Switch.
Yeah.
That's basically my, because when I was in college, I was playing Xbox and playing Halo with my roommate, and
Right. You missed
playing,
out on
playing on PC.
Right. You missed out on a couple bangers in GameCube and Wii, but honestly, you didn't miss too much.
Yeah, right.
And you probably got a little bit of that with your homies. And then at number 3, right above the Switch, is another Nintendo product, but Game Boy. This one doesn't surprise me because it was not expensive. Your first ability to play on the go. So like must have sold like hotcakes when it first came out.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I think I missed the premise to start like total sales of all time.
All time in the US.
Okay. Well then yeah, absolutely. Game Boy is.
Yeah.
I mean, does that include like it's not cornholed to like just the original Game Boy. I'm assuming it's Game Boy Advance and
it's
Game
not
Boy
Advance.
Color.
It's Game Boy Color and Game Boy.
Okay.
So
still doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So if you're looking to make a handheld, go talk to Nintendo.
Yeah, they figured it out.
Although we might have a contender here, which we'll talk about later in the show.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's move on. Did you ever play the Alan Wake game?
Nope.
Okay. It's a really cool game if you're into kind of like old school horror, like H.P. Lovecraft stuff, which I'm sure you're not.
Yeah, we've discussed this. I'm not into anything horror.
Yeah. But it's a really neat game. The guy's like an artist or a writer, and you're kind of like finding these little clues to this weird psychological thing going on. A lot of the tropes that like shows like Stranger Things have with like big monsters who like are so huge that you can't even begin to understand them. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from.
Okay.
But it's coming to the Switch fall of 2022. So if you're into that game, I highly recommend giving it a playthrough. You'll be able to play it on Nintendo Switch coming up here. And that's the remastered version, so it's not going to look terrible like it did back in the day. It didn't look terrible, but it aged.
Yeah.
I would say, Swift, if someone forces you to play a horror game, this would be the one you should pick.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not too scary. It's fun. It's fun control. It plays kind of like Uncharted mixed with, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's cool.
Cool.
So highly recommend checking that out if you haven't played before on the Switch. And then one more topic on our, I got to make sure you're up to date on the Halo series. Are you up to date?
I am.
All right. And I'm going to throw this out there. So if you're watching and you haven't seen the last 2 episodes of Halo, spoilers. I'll give you like 10 seconds to skip through this and then skip forward like, I don't know, a minute, and then you won't get spoiled. And if you're in the chat, close your earmuffs. But Master Chief has finally popped his cherry, lost his virginity with an alien spy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's weird.
You can't have a gaming podcast without talking. I feel like this is a big moment in gaming history.
Yeah, agreed. I don't really know where to dive in. Good for him.
Good and her. Good for her. Really? Yeah. I mean, this is celebrity right there. So
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's happened. You remember when I said we were talking about this show, and I was like, if they make Master Chief not like so straightforward like he is in the games, the show will be successful. They took that and went way too far. Like, I never meant Master Chief to be having a romance. Like,
I don't know. like think about the people that are watching shows these days, right?
True.
Everyone's just looking for a good time, so to speak. Not necessarily like a good time, but like everyone wants the character development. And, you know,
Yeah.
especially like Shannon when we watched Halo, she's like they all like to fall in love with certain characters. So of course they have to bring it to a certain point to keep people interested. And I think they have done that.
Yeah, they did do that. So yeah, Master Chief, he's done it. He's
done it.
There's nothing left in the universe to do, and he should be your idol. But all right. That's all we got for news this week, gamers. So we can get into our major topic. But first, let's hit you with the games radar for the week. All right, man. I told you May was going to be slow, but I got a couple for you that you might want to check out.
Okay.
Speaking of the games radar, did you check out Unpacking?
I have not, but I did buy a game that's not quite as, soothing.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it later.
Okay. Well, coming out on 18th of May, you've got a game called Gibbon Beyond the Trees. This game was a mobile game originally, and then it's kind of been coming out on stuff slowly. But on the 18th, it'll be out on everything. And if you ever wanted to be a gibbon flying through the trees, doing aerial maneuvers, and just being generally awesome, there you go. This game is perfect. Couple screenshots for you, or GIFs. GIFs? Is it GIFs or GIFs, Swift?
I have no idea.
All right, I'm going to go with GIFs. But yeah, dude, any thoughts about this really cool?
The first little GIF or GIF that you sent, or we were showing, were the dudes on, are you a sloth in this game?
You're a gibbon. It's like a marsupial. I don't know, a little monkey.
Oh, okay. So like, just look like a sloth, but faster.
Yeah, you're like you're a fast sloth.
Fast sloth. Yeah. But this clip that you're currently showing reminds me of, like some sort of Worms game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You remember playing those games?
Yeah.
Worms 3D or whatever, where you're this worm and you had to shoot things over terrain.
Oh yeah. And wind mattered and trajectories and all that. Yeah,
all this stuff mattered. So this reminds me of like, yep, here's my baby, but my baby explodes and take that.
I hope that's not what happens. It looks like,
well, probably not. But that's just what it reminds me of.
I get what you're getting at. The whole like big trajectories and kind of, I'm guessing that's what the gameplay is about, is kind of, getting your jump right and all that.
You gotta figure out where to jump and what to jump on. I mean, it looks cool.
Yeah, it looks entertaining for sure. I might put this on my phone just to check it out, but that'd be a good bathroom game right there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, 18th of May. Go ahead and check it out. Next on the docket is I feel like I'm always telling you horror games, but
you are.
It's a game called Dolmen. It's kind of a call it a action sci-fi survival type game. But I want to show you the trailer.
Okay.
But
that second screenshot just looks, there's some sort of alien thing. I'm out.
Yeah, you're out. Let's see if we can get a decent ad here. No. All right. Anyways. Yeah, dude. This game I saw some gameplay. Go ahead and check it out when you have the time. But the fighting, it's weird because you see him with a gun here, but it looked a lot like God of War game, like fighting style. So I don't know if you can be ranged and then you get into like melee damage battles, but overall, it kind of gives me of like a Dead Space meets God of War vibe, and that might be kind of cool. I know you will not be playing this, but
as long as they're, dude, honestly, I would play it if there's not things hopping out of closets behind me.
Yeah,
then I'm in.
I can't promise you.
Yeah,
I can't promise you that, but there you go. Dolmen comes out on everything but the Switch on the 20th of May.
All
right, team. Other than that, that's about all I got for you for this week coming up in games. But on my radar, so big news for One More Game podcast, but I got an email from Valve telling me my Steam Deck was ready to ship. So that should be arriving here in the next few days. So you can check out our OMG Podcast YouTube page for an unboxing exclusive content for you there. I'll give you everything you need to know about opening this bad Johnny up, plugging it in, playing, my initial thoughts, and then we'll be bringing you content of my reviews of that thing and the games on it coming up here in the next few weeks. But I was pretty stoked when I got the email. I was we'll talk about it in a minute, but I was actually in therapy and my phone buzzed and I was like, oh, I gotta go.
Yeah, and I know you messaged me and I was like, let's go,
baby. Yeah. All right, so there you have it. It's on the way. Steam Deck. Cool, dude. Anything on your radar in the future besides I guess the wedding? But
nope, that's it.
Sweet. Well, that gives us plenty of time to move on to listener emails. So this week we have not necessarily an email, but a question from Nana F16, who's in the chat. Thank you for joining us. And here's your question. So with Father's Day coming up, what are some good ideas to get your dad gaming? So what are your initial thoughts? Like if someone was like, Swift, I'll pay you $1,000 if you can get your dad addicted to a video game, what would you try?
Honestly, I would get or either buy a Switch or give my dad the Switch and start with something simple like Overcooked, right? Where we're all kind of hanging out together and we can, play it. But hoping obviously to get him into some sort of like Super Mario Odyssey, because I know that there's really no like cap on how old you have to be or how interested you have to be in video games to play a game like that, because it's a great game, right? It's very easy to get into and get involved with and understand. So it would start like that, and then maybe get him into Elden Ring. You're
gonna go right from Mario Odyssey to Elden Ring. Got it. All right.
Just like in a year or two,
Cool. Well, that's one strategy, folks. I think you're right. I would lean towards the Switch to start. That way we can play something together. Because if you just throw him a game by himself and be like, you're going to love it, but he's not going to be able to get past certain things unless he's gaming with someone. I think that's the way to go. So you can pick up a Switch Lite for $240, which is a pretty good Father's Day gift. And then get him a couple games on there. And just let him grow. Let him spread his wings, his boomer wings, and play.
And I think that there's a lot of and we've kind of talked about it on the show earlier. There are plenty of games on the Switch that are very simple to get into. Right. If someone is genuinely interested in trying gaming, the Switch I feel like is the best spot to start.
Yeah, totally.
It's very easy to get into the games, and then they progress from there, and whatever.
Totally agree. So there you go, Nana F16. I don't see any other suggestions in the chat, but that's my recommendation. Get him a Switch, and then get him on a Mario game. And what you could do to get him hooked is you can go onto the Switch store and there's a like classic arcade game bundle game that you can buy.
Absolutely.
So like show him the games that he knew and loved when he was a youngster, and then that's the first little hit, and then he'll be addicted after that. But.
Dude, it's so true. And Switch makes it so easy, so to speak, to download all of the arcade game, all the old, all the games that our parents grew up playing in the arcade. Right. To just like get in there and I don't know.
Well, there you have it. Thank you for the email / message, Nana F16. And if you want to reach out to One More Game, you can reach us at OMGpodcastGG at gmail.com. Send us your questions. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Your kind of what you'd like to hear us talk about, and we'll get into it. Or you can just tell us that we're terrible and we should stop doing this, and we will not pay any heed to that.
And no one thinks that. Let's be honest.
Yeah. All right, man. You ready? You ready to get a little,
Oh yeah.
I'm
ready.
You know what I mean? Cool, dude. We will move into the major topic for the week, and that is mental health and gaming. All right. So we should start off with a little discretion advisory here, we'll call it, or some transparency. So we are going to be talking about mental health with topics including suicide, depression, anxiety, all those type of things. So if any of those things are an issue for you, trigger warning for that. If you're struggling right now, like during this podcast, reach out for help. Reach out to us. You can reach out to the National Suicide Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. If you're in an emergency situation, something's already happened and you need help immediately, of course, call 911. But we just want to make sure that you guys are mentally prepared for these type of topics. But, it's Swift and I, so we'll keep it genial and non-political and relatively light, but this is a heavier week of conversation, but it will be related back to gaming. So at least you got that going for you. Anything else to say before we get into the nitty gritty?
No, man, you nailed it.
All right, man. Let's just start with a general topic to start off. So what are your thoughts on mental health and how kind of society views it these days, and where we're at currently in society?
Well, I think that we're in a great place overall. Whether you have trauma from abuse, like actual physical abuse, mental abuse, PTSD, literally anything from your past, I think we're in a very solid spot where finally people are taking it seriously,
right?
Where they had, where we as a society haven't in the past. So I think we're in a great spot where, like, no kidding, if you need help, reach out, go to therapy, get help you need. And I know we've talked about this in previous podcasts that, like, seriously, please seek the help that you need. And nobody is going to hold it against you. And if they do, then you don't need that person in your life because they're not worth it.
Right. Yeah. If you're reaching out to help and someone's not going to help you seriously, like, that's not the person for you. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, dude. I think never before in human history have we had such a not positive, but like helpful, effective outlook on mental health. It's not perfect, but it's getting better over time. Right. Just to be transparent with the listeners, I'm currently going through a therapy and psychiatric help for my PTSD, depression, and anxiety, which we'll get into here in a bit. But I will say that I had like a mental stigma about this type of stuff before, it kind of affected me. I always kind of thought, nothing can be that bad or whatever. And I have been completely just mind blown by what I've learned over the last few months about myself, other people, and how this all kind of works. You just have to remember that the human mind / how we perceive emotion, it's a body part, right? And you can get injured in so many different ways in your body. Well, the brain is one of the most complex body parts. And of course, there's going to be a plethora of injuries that you can get with that. And it's not necessarily going to be something physiological or obvious, right? And that's kind of where mental health lives. So I think the more we move towards viewing mental health as an injury, that not only people need help fixing that injury, or at least healing or recovering or being a safe space, but that you can recover and get better just like you would if you sprained your ankle, right?
Yeah.
So
and,
yeah,
dude, I'll be honest. I think there's a lot, like you talked about initially. I think there's a stigma to it, especially for like you and I in the Air Force, right?
Right.
If you and I were to go to a mental health doctor as a second lieutenant, like, yeah, it's important, but it also probably, and I think this is where we need to figure out where the line is drawn. But it probably has an effect on your career, especially us as flyers, right?
Right.
So there's a stigma attached to it where, okay, well, I can't go see a mental health professional. I can't go get the help that I need despite having severe anxiety or whatever, PTSD, whatever it happens to be. So I think that's also a huge part of it. And I know like the wings are trying to work through that to figure out how do we do this in a safe space so that people know that it's not going to negatively affect your career, right? And I'm sure it's the same whether you're a pilot or you're a coder or an engineer or whatever, you know? Like I'm sure in leadership's mind, there's a certain stigma attached to, oh, this guy or gal is messed up mentally, right? Maybe they don't deserve that promotion that they've worked so hard for, which is right out. Right. That's not how it should work. But I know there is that behind the scenes, which I think obviously needs to be fixed, right? Because mental health is very important. If you're not healthy mentally, how are you putting in your best work every day at whatever, like literally whatever job you're doing?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Right?
If you're not good up here and in here,
yeah,
nothing is you're not gonna be effective at anything.
Right.
Yeah. You hit on some good points, dude. I think the military has come a long way. And I'm only speaking from my 15 years doing this gig, but there's definitely some way to go, I'll say, but we're a long way. Sure. We're a long way from, Vietnam, where dudes came back and got stuff thrown at them by the public, and they all had PTSD, and no one was there to help. And as someone who kind of, as a pilot who hid a lot of his, or like didn't address a lot of my mental issues because I was going through pilot training, I will offer a word of caution if you're doing stuff like that, is that it's gonna be worse the longer you don't deal with it. So I was not really understanding what was going on, but also like worried about, like you said, the career thing and the flying and all that. Like, I'm not going to go deal with that stuff because I'm trying to achieve certain goals. And now it's had much, much worse effect on me than it would have if I had just dealt with it back then.
Right.
I've also learned that middle-aged men, kind of our young strapping age of, mid to late 30s, this is a prime time for you to start developing anxiety, depression, especially if you are the kind of person who has been pushing down your emotions and your and your trauma for many, many years, your brain's ability to kind of keep those things at bay starts to fail at this age. So just be on the lookout for kind of your friends and all of that. But I will say we do got a long way to go when it comes to mental health in the military, but positive steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, there you have it. Now, how does this relate to what we consider ourselves as experts to talk about video games? So Swift, just as a jumping off point here, what do you think? Is gaming good for your overall mental health or a negative?
For me personally, I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's obviously very easy to make that a counter argument for certain people. But when I get home from a long day at work, I come up here and I play video games and like we talked about, decompress. So for me, I think it's great because it allows me to do that specifically. Okay?
Right.
I just forget about the day. And not necessarily forget, not like I'm trying to forget about my day, whether it be flying or whatever. But if there was a stressful day at work, whatever, come up here, game for an hour or two, and I think it's great for me personally. Obviously, that can vary based on the person,
right?
But yeah,
cool. Yeah, I'll agree with you to a point. So for myself, I think gaming has always been an escape, and that started early in my childhood with kind of some stuff that was going on in my childhood with my biological mother. I think I always used video games because they were always kind of around to escape stuff that I didn't really understand but knew was not good. And so I think I just built on that for years and years and years and years. And I think I've used gaming as sort of I don't want to say reality escape, but definitely something that delays my having to think about things, trauma, right, that I don't want to think about. And that has just exacerbated itself over time. So I have to be very careful with how much time I spend avoiding certain thoughts using video games as the way to do that. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So overall, man, like I'm not going to come out here and say I think video games are bad for me, but I'm definitely not going to say that it's all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to gaming, because it definitely has a way of kind of making me avoid things that I don't want to deal with.
Well, and I will, dude. So you and I have talked about it was, a few episodes ago, and you saying that just brought this to memory. But we were talking about, mistakes that we've made as far as gaming, right?
Right.
When Jen was getting her award and you were home gaming in the tournament, and Shannon brought up a point that weekend after she listened to the podcast. But there was a point for me where like Shannon was not in the Air Force, right? She didn't do like she's a successful business owner. But there was a point there in our very very early days of gaming or of dating, of me gaming around her, where she made us this dinner, and it was like pan-seared tuna salad. I mean, it was so good. And she literally came up to my room upstairs in South Carolina and was like, all right, well, dinner's going to be ready in 30 minutes. And I don't know if you and I are playing. I doubt you and I are playing, but I was playing with somebody, so to speak, cod or whatever the flavor of the day was. And I didn't go down for like an hour and a half. And she was like, so mad at me. And I was like, yeah, that's reasonable. And I came down and we ate dinner and we had a very distinct heart to heart about like, okay,
Yeah.
gaming can be this thing, but at the same time, like I need you to be present, right?
Right.
So I think that's kind of the line where you kind of have to find it depending on your situation,
Right.
whatever it
Yeah.
happens to be.
It feels really bad when gaming compromises relationships that you care about,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
Uh, so in that sense, it can definitely be a negative on your life and maybe a little bit on your mental health if it keeps causing you those type of issues.
Yeah,
So just be aware of that. Gaming has a way of sucking away hours without you really noticing, which is true of a lot of hobbies, right? But gaming especially is designed to keep you playing. So
yep.
be very cognizant of that, or else you could fall into a dark space. I think so. When I was at B course, I was living alone. Jen was we were married on paper, but Jen was living in Alaska. She was stationed in what is it called? Whatever.
Allison or
No, the other one. I can't remember.
Anchorage,
What's in Anchorage? What's the base? Elmendorf. That's the one.
Almendorf. Yeah, yeah.
And so I was living by myself in a 4-bedroom house for some reason because it was super cheap to rent out there. And I was gaming. If I wasn't flying or like at work, I was gaming and like or like doing a little bit of partying with the bros a little bit, but like most of my free time was gaming and just I was accountable to no one, right? God, I must have just spent hours and hours and hours just gaming and not really thinking about what I could be doing or thinking
Yeah.
about or issues I could have been addressing while that was happening. So be careful. That's just kind of my 2 cents. But overall, all that really matters is what gaming represents to you. If you're using it as a coping mechanism or a way to decompress or a way to escape reality because you don't like reality, that's fine. You know yourself better than anyone else, but try not to be in denial if it's not something that's healthy for you.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Overall, I would not trade a ton of memories I've made with, especially socially, with friends on gaming. But all right, so there is a major deficit in when it comes to mental health and kind of relationships and social interaction in gaming is that you don't have that kind of face to face, right? Like I'm playing with you, bros, but aside from like what you're telling me and what we're kind of BSing about, it tends to be very fun and cordial, right? And you very rarely get into like serious conversations when you're gaming with your homies, at
Yeah.
least personally. So you really have no way of knowing how people are doing mentally, emotionally, unless you ask them or tell them, or they tell you, right? So there's countless, stories about people who were gaming with longtime raid guild members or, duos, partners and stuff. And then the next day they just never show up and they find out that they committed suicide. And they were like, oh, I should have been able to tell. But you don't have a lot of those like it's hard for me to know exactly how you're feeling because you could cover it up pretty easily just by talking to me, right?
Oh yeah.
So kind of, I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on like, are you ever able to tell like if you're playing with a homie and he's like not talking a lot on comms or just like kind of frustrated more than normal, or ever had any incidents like that?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
Um, unless you're looking somebody in the eye and you understand their body language or whatever it happens to be, it's difficult to tell. I mean, even face to face, it's difficult to tell sometimes, right?
Right.
We have dudes in the Air Force who commit suicide sadly all the time because they're dealing with stuff and they're bros never realize it, and they're out at barbecues, they're being totally normal.
Right.
So it's obviously it's very difficult to tell face to face, especially over just like you and I talking over comms.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Online. So I think, you know, I think it's easy to say from, sitting here, but I think it's super important, just like you did when you started going through not being able to sleep and all the things. Like you were very transparent with me and the bros to start. I think it's important. Like again, easy to say sitting here, right? Not necessarily struggling with anything, but very important. Like if you are struggling, then if you don't want to reach out to the hotline, like T said earlier, if you have a core group of friends, if you have a core group of gaming buddies, like just like get that weight off of your chest and talk to the people that you trust. I think is the most important part, because typically they're not going to steer you wrong, right? Hopefully they'll be supportive. If they're not supportive, you need new friends. But just get it off your chest, own up to it. Again, like we talked about, it's totally normal these days. Normalized, I guess. It's probably been normal for a long time, but now it's normalized,
right?
To seek help. So please get it off your chest. If you need help, again, join our Discord. Reach out to either Taze and I. Taze is obviously going through some stuff that he has been very open with. He has more experience with it than me, but we're all here to help you.
Yeah, man, you bring up some awesome points. So that weight, I'll tell you that. So I wasn't flying for a while before I talked to you guys about it. Wasn't necessarily like seeing the psychiatrist yet, but I had been pulled off the line because something was weird, right? And so I kind of knew that something was going on. I wasn't going to be flying for a while, but I was sort of embarrassed to talk to you guys about it. And so I was talking to Jen about it one day, and she's like, "You just need to open up to someone about it besides me." And I was like, "Yeah." And since moving here, we haven't made like a whole lot of IRL friends. And so she's like, "Well, who do you want to talk to about it?" And I was like, "I'm just going to tell the bros, the squad, and just let them know and be open about it so they know." I don't know. So if they see anything weird or hear me acting strange or whatever, they're in the know, and we can take care of it, and they don't have to be worried. So I will totally piggyback on what Swift said. If you've got something going on, the worst thing you can do is hide it and cover it up and try to live with it. Eventually you won't be tough enough. I always thought that I would just power through, right? Just man up. But I promise you that you can't forever.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get into a little bit of like the overall media interpretation of kind of how video games are viewed. So I know this was really big back in the 90s with like Hillary Clinton and early 2000s with, game violence and them trying to link it to mass shootings and all that. I don't know if you remember when the Columbine happened, they said that they were playing Doom maybe or Duke Nukem. I can't remember what the game was, but
yeah.
And they were basically trying to say these games were causing these type of thoughts. So what are your thoughts? Like, do you think video games cross a line in violence that maybe has it changed how you view violence based on the games that you played? Because we've all played games where we shoot people, right? Anything you've noticed about your personal values because of gaming?
No, I don't think video, and I don't want to speak for everybody, right? But in my mind, I don't think video games translate to a real world like interaction, right?
Right.
If I played GTA 5 and I hit a hooker on the street, I'm not going to just go randomly hitting people on the street in real life.
Right.
First of all, because I'm an introvert and I would never ever approach. I don't like talking to other people.
Confrontation is not your thing.
Yeah. But no, just like overall, I think people are reaching when they say that video games cause violence. And again, I guess I should say with a caveat that that's for me, right?
Yeah.
Or what I feel like a normal person is. Right? If somebody is a sociopath, then they play a video game and then they commit a crime. Even then, I don't think it's the video game doing the beckoning for them.
Right.
I think it's just them, right? It's their mind.
Right.
So I struggle to reach conclusions where there's like the identification of a video game connected to a personal, interaction or whatever it is.
Right. It's hard to make that link in my mind between a violent crime or a violent act and what you've seen in video games. I will say that vulnerable minds, right? People with truly mental illness may have, they may have issues going on in their mind that might be exacerbated by things they see, for example, in gaming, but that's going to be exacerbated by everything in our modern culture, right? TV, music. I don't think you can say that gaming is like you said, crosses that line between what's real life and what's make believe, essentially.
No. Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, there's no difference between chicks or dudes rapping about all kinds of random, violent acts versus gaming versus the movies that we watch that are highly entertaining, but obviously sometimes violent, right? So I don't think that you can make the stretch to say gaming caused this,
right?
And that's the hill I will die on.
Yeah, they tried to make that link in those times, and really the only thing that resulted out of it was game ratings, rated M for mature and all that.
Yeah.
So what in the modern world with online purchases and everything, what are your thoughts about ratings these days? Like, do we even need this anymore? Like, nothing can stop a kid from downloading anything he wants on the internet.
Well, dude, I don't know. I haven't seen LimeWire in a little while. And that's what I grew up with.
Right.
That made it very easy to download anything I wanted.
Theoretically, Swift did nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, I never downloaded anything wrong or whatever. But I will say, like, yeah. Are you kidding me? Let's if I could bring, my 6-year-old nephew to the movie to a rated M thing,
right,
and just let him walk through the thing, like, dude, the guy checking tickets is 16 years old. He doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right? There's, like, give me a break. We're not putting any barriers on what people or children can see.
That's not true, dude. You've all seen the websites that make you say, "Are you 18?" I don't know what websites you're talking about.
Yeah, no. I've never seen any of those.
Those are very effective at keeping under 18 children out of those websites.
But I'm just saying,
when you're on Steam and it goes, "What's your birthday so you can watch this rated M game?" I'm like, are you kidding me? This is why even have it?
Yeah, and it gives you the option to put your birthday as 1929. You're like, what are we doing here?
It's so silly. I wish they would just get rid of it, but yeah, it is what it is. At least it gives parents like a general idea if they're buying it for them. But I got news for you. If that's what you're using as a parent to make sure your kid's not seeing the right things, you're behind the power curve.
Yeah, no shot.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to have a general conversation about that because I've always just been mind boggled by older generations trying to make that connection. But their parents did it to them with rock and roll. Rock and roll was made by the devil.
That's right, dude. Yeah.
Cool.
It's like foosball.
Yeah. Ricky Bobby. Or what was his name? Bobby Boucher, not Ricky Bobby.
Bobby Boucher, yeah.
There we go. Cool, man. All right, let's get into another topic when it comes to mental health and gaming. So the streaming culture has changed the landscape when it comes to how we play games, how we view people that play games, what kind of interactions we have, and kind of the social scenery that is video gaming. So it's huge, right?
Yeah.
So that comes with a whole slew of mental health, I won't say problems, but issues to talk about. So there's been multiple prolific suicides in the streaming world. One to bring up is the streamer Wreckful. So he streamed for a long time. Was like one of the early big streamers, and he ended up taking his life a while back. And if you go back and watch the last stream that he had before, we won't play it on here, but before the incident happened, he's kind of signing off, and he's like talking to his chat, and he's like, all right, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and then he kind of pauses, and he's like, if you guys are suffering or like lonely, look for someone to talk to in the chat or whatever. And he's kind of playing around something that you can't really get a feel for, but you can always armchair quarterback. But he was trying to sign off, but like couldn't bring himself to do it, and he was kind of getting emotional. So yeah, have you watched that?
I have not. No, I saw it on Twitter when it happened. I can't bring myself to watch something like that. I don't know.
It's pretty rough.
It's brutal. Like I'm like, for anybody that's not watching, I'm like, and I'm kind of a very emotional person, which I really haven't said, but like that, I'm like tearing up. It makes me feel horrible inside.
Yeah, it's I was kind of doing some research for this, and I had to kind of stop watching it, but so in the streaming space, those guys and gals spend hours and hours in front of these screens with these huge numbers of people talking to them, and everyone's in our generation, right? It's like playing video games for a living. That sounds amazing, right? But it comes with a whole set of issues where you can't make connections with people for real because you're showing a certain thing on screen, and just all kinds of stuff.
I mean, even in your personal life, when you're on screen for whatever, and then you go out to a bar with like you said, our IRL friends, like, can you imagine like the amount of people that must, whether they watch your screen or not, right? They probably know who you are based off of a friend or whatever happens to be. So I can't imagine, and I say this all while saying like and subscribe to our stream or my stream and Taze's stream, but I can't imagine going out and having a real connection to anybody.
Right.
Because everyone just sees you as that thing, and it's kind of like being, a famous rapper. Because let's be honest, they're all celebrities, right?
Right.
especially in this day and age, they're all celebrities. So when you go out as a famous streamer, it's the same as going out as a famous actress or an actor.
Oh yeah.
So I can't imagine the strain it puts on just your everyday life and building relationships and all. I mean, it's got to be brutal.
Yeah, I was watching this. It wasn't necessarily a stream, but a YouTube video, I think, and Ninja and Tim the Tatman tried to go to Disney World and go to Epcot and have some drinks around the world. And they were just constantly swarmed with people, right? Young kids.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And they know you as a certain thing that you portray.
Right, this personality online.
So now you have to be that all the time when you're in real life because you got all your fans, right? So it's just got to be just draining in so many ways that we can't understand.
Yeah.
Depression is actually pretty rampant in the professional streaming space. 3 for sure that I know of. Reckful, obviously, we already talked about. Asmongold has talked about depression, especially after his mom passed. And do you remember watching those videos? Like how he was just... Yeah.
Yeah, and he's actually very good. Sorry, I won't drag on the conversation too long, but he's one of the better ones in my mind. And again, I haven't been following streamers or watching streamers for a very long time. But I think Asmongold is one of the better ones as far as just getting the info out there.
Yeah.
And being straight up and honest and like, this is how I'm feeling. I'm taking time off. I'm doing this, whatever, because this is what happened. So I think good on him for not, kind of bottling it up.
Yeah, he does a good job of, at least from what we see, right? Of being transparent with what's affecting him and how streaming is rough on him. And I think that's becoming a little bit more and more common with these guys because they're a little bit more open and honest after a couple of these like major public things. But yeah, I know Pokimane has like taken huge breaks and received like therapy and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's got to be rough, and it's rough in a way that like I know they're constantly feeling like this, right? Like, are my fans going to be like, if I open up and be like, I'm suffering with depression or anxiety, are my fans going to be like, we pay you millions of dollars to play video games on a TV?
And to just not talk about it, right? Is the biggest thing.
Right. So it's got to be a lot of weight and pressure.
Yeah.
But it's a general microcosm of society, right? So depression is everywhere, and I'm dealing with this, and I think we're kind of starting to make some headway. But I'll say that when you're depressed, clinically, you don't really know, if you haven't experienced it before. You don't really know that you're depressed. You just feel, at least for me, like just heavy, and everything is hard. Like even stuff that you love to do, like video games for me, this was one of my first indicators that something was really, really wrong. Is I would get done with a day at work and playing with the kids and finally get them down to bed. And I would tell Jen, like, hey, I want to go game, because that's what I do, right? To decompress. And I'd sit down in front of the computer and I'd be like, oh, just seems like so much work and I'm not going to have fun. And I was kind of like just exhausted to do everything, even if it was something I know I enjoyed.
Yeah.
My wife kind of described it. She's like, when I feel sad, I feel like everything is heavy, right? My hair feels heavy, the weight of my shoulders and arms. And I was talking to her and I was like, yeah, I think I felt like that for years without really knowing.
For a very long time.
Right. And I would I would cover it up by, hanging out and partying and whatever. But you would see it really bad when I drank a lot. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but yeah, so depression is everywhere, man. And it's hard to feel for someone unless you've been in those shoes.
For sure.
I don't know. We haven't talked about this with you and I, but have you ever had something happen that you felt like you were depressed for a long period of time or anything?
The only thing I can think of is, in college, maybe, or high school, breaking up with a chick that I thought was, going to be the one. Other than that, I will say I'm extremely blessed.
Right. I mean, most of us, I think, have experienced relationship breakups.
Yeah.
And that's what depression, that feeling that you're talking about.
Right.
We act like it's this thing that only certain people get, but everyone has been depressed. It's just the length of time.
Right.
It's this big secret that we don't talk about with each other.
Yeah.
Even though we all have experienced it, it's like, so if I told you that I've been feeling like that for years, that same feeling you had when you had a relationship crash, you'd be like, oh my God, how have you dealt with that for so long, right? But nobody talks about it with each other because it feels weak or whatever.
Right.
So that being said, if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling like something's wrong, if it's hard to get out of bed, if it feels like everything's a chore, you don't find joy in the things that make at one point made you happy, reach out to someone because you're most probably depressed. But keep in mind, we're not doctors. I'm going through this stuff myself. We're just trying to speak from our own personal experiences so that you can, just to bring awareness to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously not clinically proven. Just trying to speak about our experiences and how we deal with it, obviously.
All right. Cool. Well, not cool, but moving on.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about attention deficit and gaming. So I read a study by Harvard Medical. They were trying to determine what our modern attention span is without doing something else. And so they did this test on, how tests roll, but they were trying to determine how long someone would wait before they had to either do something else or try to make whatever was happening change.
Yeah.
So they basically gave them computer screens they'd have buttons to click and stuff, and they determined that our attention span in modern times is 7 seconds. We are unable to concentrate on a thing for longer than about 7 seconds on average. Does this make any sense to you? When you're thinking about your phone and all the videos we watch and stuff?
It does to me. Yeah. And so I'll be honest, I have ADHD.
Yeah.
I was unable to take meds because I was going for a pilot slot in school, and so it does make sense in my mind. Hopefully, I feel like not everybody has ADHD to the extent that I do.
Right.
But I'm very much I have to have something else happening behind me to.
Really?
Dude, when I was going through pilot training, and all I had at the time was a bed, a desk, a computer, and 10 seasons of Friends on DVD.
What else do you need?
And I would I would put Friends on just so there was, and it helps that I'm very familiar with Friends.
Right.
If it's something new, then that's right out. But
gotcha.
I've watched Friends enough to know what scene they're in, what they're doing, blah, 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 just based on the commentary that I hear. So I would literally, when I was studying like the -1 of the T6, I had friends on.
That's crazy.
Always. Yeah. So like my mind has to be doing multiple things.
Right.
And if there's just silence, like I literally can't concentrate on anything.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, it's very, very weird, and I like never had meds for it or anything, but it's worked to this point.
Yeah. Well, thanks for opening up. It's Slam and C. Thanks for the raid, dude. We're currently talking about mental health and gaming because it's Mental Health Awareness Month and week. And Swift was just talking a little bit about ADHD, and we were talking about a study that came out that said that our average attention span is about 7 seconds. That music thing that you just brought up, Swift, makes a lot of sense now based on
oh yeah,
your emote of choice in Fortnite.
Dude, literally anybody that knows me knows, whether it's the like, I mean, you know me, the rocking, right? Even if I'm not rocking, my toe, like my legs
tapping
are going. If my legs can't go, my toes go. Like something is always happening that I have to keep. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird, but
so yeah, man, we live in a world, and I know you know those diagnoses are range a whole bunch, but we live in a world that kind of lends to this sort of illness, right? So I'm just thinking about looking at my phone. Like, what do you typically do? Like, you'll pop in here and you'll look at Facebook and you'll scroll through. Like, my attention is changing by the second when I scroll, right? Same goes with Instagram, Twitter. Like, we are taught and live fully surrounded in a world where I'm just surrounded by information. I'm just looking at this web page, and there's words everywhere, and there's music, and there's videos, and it's insane.
Yeah.
And so it's no wonder that we can't, concentrate longer than 7 seconds.
Yeah. Dude, sorry. Again, I'm not trying to drag this on for whatever reason.
No worries. We'll keep talking.
So I think I told you we have our personal trainer, strength and conditioning coaches on base for the pilots, and he was telling me the other day as we were working out, he was like, dude, I don't know what it was, but I would wake up and I had no real goal for the day, right? And that's not to say like you need a goal for every day,
right?
But he's like, I had no real goal for anything I was doing necessarily. And I mean, this dude he's fit, right?
Yeah.
This guy is a strength and conditioning coach on Air Force Base.
Right.
So I'm like, well, I think you're probably underestimating that. But he's like, dude, I would wake up and I would do something, and then I would have my protein shake, and he as I'm working out, as I'm dying, he's just walking around telling me this, and I'm like, thanks, dude. Nice. But he's like, dude, yeah, and then I have my protein shake and I'm glued to my socials. And then I would cook breakfast and I'm glued to my socials. And I would, hang out in the morning prior to leaving for work and I'm glued to my socials.
Right.
And he was like, and so instead of that, and he talked to somebody else who did a big meditation in the morning. And so for the past week, this guy, Bogo, Emeka, Bogo is his call sign, Emeka is his actual name. He was like, dude, for the past week, all I've been doing is I've been waking up, I give myself 5 minutes, and I just kind of walk around, warm up for the day, whatever. After that 5 minutes, I sit out in the backyard or the front yard, whatever it happens to be, and I just listen. I'm not meditating, I'm not doing anything, but I'm listening to birds and, water.
Right.
And there's no brain processes going on
Right.
during that. He's just like, all I do is sit there and close my eyes and listen. And then after that, I'll cook my breakfast. And then I'll meditate for 15 minutes or whatever it happens to be. Like literally turn your brain off and meditate. And I
Right.
think that it's super important for people. If you've never meditated, you've never like truly shut your brain off, I think it can help a ton. And the fact that he told me this the other day, I got up the past couple days. Shane and I've been flying early, but I wasn't flying on Wednesday. So I still woke up at 6 because that's just where my body clock is at.
Yeah.
So I wake up at 6 and I was like, I pulled my phone out and I was like, you know what? No. I made I'm not obviously not a brag or anything like that, but I made a conscious decision to put my phone down, leave it in the room, and I took my book that I have been reading and I just walked out to the living room. And I didn't meditate or anything like that, but I just read for an hour prior to even looking at my phone. And it was a wonderful morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because Jen whooped my ass this late morning. She made me do two circuit workouts in a row because we missed 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
And when we get done, we're in the backyard on our mats, and the kids are playing with water balloons and stuff. And I've been talking about meditation a lot in therapy.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Hey, Jen, do you have a meditation app on your phone?" She's like, "No, but I'll find one." And I was like, "Let's try to see if we can get the kids to meditate with us and start learning how to like calm the mind and stuff."
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it didn't work out. The kids are too crazy.
Of course not.
But Jen and I had at least a few seconds of just kind of listening to the wind and the birds and the kids play. And I think you're right, man. We spend so much time absorbing info and videos and pictures and all of it that we never just stop thinking for a little bit.
Yeah. And dude, I'll be honest. The craziest thing for me is SOS. Right? Yeah. SOS, if you don't know what SOS is, Squadron Officer School. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah.
In the Air Force. It's where you go and try to like learn how to be a leader, right? And for most people have already been leaders. For us fighter pilots, it's something we kind of scoff, right? Yeah. We don't care because we're not for a fighter pilot. Typically, you're not actually in charge of people until you're either a flight commander or you're old enough to be a squadron commander or something else, right? A DO, director of operations. So for us fighter pilots, we kind of just scoff at the fact that SOS is a thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, let's go. Cool. We'll do the thing. We'll get drunk every day. No one cares. We'll go party every night. Again, it's kind of a joke. But when I was at Squadron Officer School, I'll be honest, that's the first place that I heard of, like, no kidding, meditating.
Right.
And we had a guest speaker show up, and they were it was so crazy to me because they showed up and they're like, okay, I want everybody in this, and it's a massive auditorium. We have like 1,500 people in this auditorium, right? So it's never quiet, right? Until this guy says this, hey, I want everybody to close your eyes and then just try to not think of anything for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you realize how difficult that is, right? Because of all the stressors in your life that are just poking at your brain. But when you just close your eyes and you try not to think about anything,
Right.
you realize how much is going on in your brain. And if you can get to a place where you can do that for, 10 seconds to start, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute even, like it's super important for your health, for your mental health, to
Right.
just shut everything out and just focus on nothing. And I'm telling you, I'd never done it before, but you will be surprised if you can do that for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it happens to be, like how important it is to just like reset. And it's amazing.
That's so funny. We didn't talk about this before, but I had the same exact experience at SOS. I remember thinking, we're sitting in the big auditorium, right? And they're like, we're going to meditate today. And I'm like, oh my God,
Oh
no,
God,
why? I'm going to go
not
to
like
sleep.
this. Yeah.
But I just let myself kind of listen to what he was saying. And dude, it was kind of mind boggling how effective it was at making me just kind of chill.
Yeah. And like I said, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
If you can literally turn your brain off and not think about anything, like literally focus. So what you told us is focus on your breathing, right? Don't think about anything outside of that.
Right.
If you can do that for 10 seconds,
Winner.
Congrats.
You did it.
Like, yeah, that's insane. Because I could not go more than 2 or 3 seconds without thinking about all the other things in my life. So again, highly recommend to, if you got things going on, just take some time for your mental health. Take a pause, wake up in the morning, drink your coffee, and think about nothing.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. And this is one thing Jen and I have talked about kind of incorporating into our lives more. So there's a bunch of apps out there that can help you with it. I know it might be counterintuitive, right? We're telling you to stop thinking and stop being glued to your phone, but go get an app. But there's some out there.
Also, we're talking about video games ish.
I did have a point about that. So there are some video games that I kind of put in like the meditation style realm based on the music and the theming and stuff. There's this really cool game. It's going to take me a while to remember what it's called, but with the music and the gameplay loop and everything, and it's very peaceful and calming. And you are thinking, but you're thinking about one very specific, deliberate thing. I kind of like to play it when I want to, chill, kind of like I would if I was meditating. But yeah, dude, cool. So there you have it. Our solution to just kidding. But try to get yourself a little meditation session every day and see, kind of what the benefits are.
Yeah.
That being said, Black Day 2004. Thank you for the follow, man. We really appreciate it. And if you got friends who might be interested, let them know. All right, we got to talk about something else that's pretty big in the gaming scene these days, and it's a term we talked about before, but parasocial relationships. It's easy to feel like we know people in a certain way, but that relationship is one directional, right? It's not returned. It's very evident with streamers, right? So if you watch a streamer enough, you kind of start to feel like you have a relationship with that person. At least that's what it's kind of intended to do with getting chat engagement. I'm not saying with the huge streamers, right? They're never going to see your message. But like streamers who have like a consistent crew that watches them and talks with them and they engage back and forth. There's this thing called parasocial relationships where you may think you're building a relationship that's not necessarily real. And that could also happen with other people that you game with, right? Like if you have a consistent raiding crew in WoW or all that kind of stuff, you may start to think that you're developing a relationship with someone that's completely not a thing. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So I know a lot of, especially unfortunately, female streamers get a lot of issues with people not being able to make the distinction between, someone you're watching on screen for entertainment and someone you can now try to find or, worst case, like stalk in real life. But it's just a topic to kind of bring up, dude. Like, do you think this is moving in a healthy direction or
No,
no?
I don't. And I know, like, you mentioned Pokemon earlier. I think I could be off, but I know for a fact that she had stalkers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think she still
Um,
has that kind of stuff going on.
and so I think that probably contributes to, like, obviously mental health. Like, if you can't relax in your own home
Right.
because you're a famous streamer, then that's not good, right? So I there's no real way to solve this because some people are just crazy.
Right.
Um, but if you're listening and you're thinking about stalking somebody, just be a good person and don't.
And don't do that.
Yeah.
And there is a serious like underlying problem because there are people out there who, maybe they don't have any friends. Maybe they are, reaching for some sort of connection, right? People with depression and loneliness, and now they've got this platform that they can come and hang out with someone and get them to respond to them on chat and all that kind of stuff. And now
No, absolutely.
they don't have the social skills to understand what that
That's just not a cordial thing.
right.
All of a sudden Pokemon loves me.
Right.
And yeah, I understand that, right?
Yeah.
And that's rough. Um, which is why I don't think this is going to get fixed in the near future
Right.
/ ever, because people are just going to continue to, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this goes, because if I was, you know, lonely or whatever, I'm not saying I am, immune to it
Right.
necessarily, right? You don't have to be a crazy person or have whatever disease you could think about
Right.
to be this person, right? You just kind of have to be like, oh, I'm kind of down on my luck, lonely. Oh, she responded to me. I think she might love me.
Yeah.
And obviously that's crazy, not crazy, but just weird place to get to.
Right. And it's streaming is meant to be like that, right? Like they'll say, "Oh, welcome back to chat. I love you.
Yeah,
oh, so happy you're
exactly.
here." And someone who is really in need of something like that and who doesn't have the ability to separate that stuff, that's where you
Right.
get into those issues. And this has always been a thing, right, with celebrities and stuff. But I think streaming takes it to a whole nother level because there's that one-on-one possible interaction where they're doing it for a certain reason, because that's how you stream and make a good audience and stuff. But
Well, plus
you're
it's so easy for everybody else, right?
right.
All you have to do is have a computer or an Xbox or whatever, download
Yeah.
Twitch, and wow, there you go.
There you go, streamer.
You hit the follow button, you hit the subscribe button, and someone that says thank you, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah. So I do hope that kind of like as streaming gets more and more prolific, that somebody kind of helps educate streamers who get big, like how to maintain safe and healthy like audiences without kind of just be aware of those kind of pitfalls. But we'll see where it
Yeah.
gets from here. Probably not going to get better, I can tell you that.
No.
Cool, man. Any other like big things you can think about when it comes to like streaming and mental health?
I don't. I mean, not off the top of my nugget.
Cool. A lot of these issues are covered. I wanted to give this kind of out to the listeners. There's a really cool YouTube channel slash streamer. I think his name is Dr. Khan, but he's a licensed psychiatrist. But he runs a channel called Healthy Gamer GG, and he interviews. He basically has a session with big streamers, medium to big streamers. Like he's been on with Asmongold. He had a episode, I think, with Reckful, like about depression. He's been on with Pokimane, all kinds of stuff, right? And he just obviously there's an audience watching, and you know you're not gonna. He keeps it very non-personal. He lets the streamer decide how personal or not personal they want to get. But he kind of helps them through their issues, right? He's helped, not necessarily helped, but at least had a session with a lot of streamers about ADHD, depression, anxiety, kind of loneliness with streaming, or like just streaming pitfalls, right? And he covers some really cool stuff. If you're into kind of psychology and all that, like I would highly recommend checking at least one episode out. Have you seen this dude before?
No, I haven't, but I will.
Yeah, that's
very cool.
He talks about all these things that we've been talking about, so it's pretty cool. I found him when I was first kind of getting into this stuff about myself, but
yeah,
check him out. Nah, he did not pay me to say this. I don't know him, but cool, dude. What are your thoughts about gaming as a coping mechanism for traumatic events? You think that this would be something that you would do if like something really bad happened? Would you kind of lose yourself in gaming, or God forbid, but
I don't know, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been very blessed in my life, thank God. So I don't really know where I would go. I feel like I probably would fall back to gaming.
Obviously things have changed a lot for you, like being married and stuff. You have Shannon and all that, but
yeah, no, yeah, and it, you know, not necessarily just with her, but with family. I feel like there's a lot of things that I could feel, and I'm assuming that I would feel them very harshly.
Yeah.
And internally, if the worst would happen to, you know, any of my family members. And so I don't know. I feel like maybe I would take, you know, a few days and just feel it.
Yeah.
But then maybe fall back on, I need a safe space, and so play video games.
Yeah. I used to think that I would do this. I used to think, you know, if I lost everything, I would just game all day. But what I kind of learned about myself when I was really into the depression and anxiety was gaming felt joyless.
Like, and dude, I'll be honest, it might. When I'm thinking about the question, it totally could.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's also important to realize like coping mechanisms are good to a point, right? It's when you are when you're unable to like stop needing that thing to feel a certain way, or if you're using it to consistently shield you or keep you from dealing with the true issues, that's when those type of things are unhealthy. And I'll agree. I've done this for probably way too long. I think that in my counseling or therapy sessions, it's called safety behaviors. Things that you do to put you in a safe space and not have to mentally deal with the stuff that's causing you trauma.
Yeah.
So safety behaviors are dangerous because you will always want to revert back to that thing that makes you feel safe and better.
Which, yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right?
Right.
If it's something you do every day, then surprise, you're gonna go back to it and probably suppress whatever feelings you're feeling.
Right.
So,
And then gaming is a really easy way to do that, right? Because you can live any life. You can be a hero. You can be evil. You can do whatever you want to do in the gaming space. So
yeah.
it's easy to separate yourself from the reality of harsh times that you're dealing with. Yeah, man. I just want to. I was curious to see what your thoughts on that would be, but I've never really considered it. I did kind of think that that would be my go-to, but I'll tell you that when I was at my lowest during this stuff, even gaming wasn't the thing. Like I just wanted to kind of do nothing and brood. But
And I'll be honest, it doesn't me saying that maybe I would fall back on that. It doesn't surprise me, you saying that
yeah,
because I could easily find myself like, I mean, last week, I was busy and tired, and I played like 2 hours of video games all week.
yeah,
So I could easily see, stress of to that extent being like, yeah, maybe I'll go turn my computer on and I'll just like stare at the screen for a while,
right,
like probably won't actually play any video games because I just don't have the motivation.
right. Yeah,
So
that's what depression is, at least in my understanding. It's like I have no motivation for even the simplest of enjoyable things.
yeah,
Cool. All right, let's get into this topic because I think it's interesting because I have a kid. Um, what are your thoughts on video games and child development? Big conversation, right? But in your synopsis, what do you think? Are they good for kids / teens? Are they bad?
yeah. I'm just waiting for my nephew to join Pace Clan. And we'll be set.
Yeah.
No, dude. Honestly, I don't know. I know you guys have the two kiddos. Shannon and I, we can get into our uh,
Yeah.
trial of tribulations in a later episode. Um, but I don't know. I think it's, I guess, developing kids. I played a lot of video games when I was young,
Right.
and I think that is what made me good with my left hand, right hand,
Right. Yeah.
right? Being a fighter pilot, like doing the things, being athletic, right? When
Right.
things
Right.
don't
Right.
necessarily go to plan. Um, so I don't know if it necessarily is a bad thing or a good thing. I obviously have my sister and her 3 kids, and I know she tries to limit their screen time,
Right.
despite Bentley, our oldest nephew, loving Super Mario Odyssey. Um, so I feel like there's a certain extent to where it's like healthy and when it's not, but um, overall, I don't. And again, not a father, right? Disclaimer.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I I think it's fine for kids to get to experience video games and find what they love, and then maybe they get good and not necessarily join a team or whatever, but maybe you get to enjoy that time, like you and Liam.
Right.
When you're playing video games together, like that. It's not necessarily for him or against him, right? It's
Right.
not detrimenting his growth as a human, but it's cool for you guys to sit down and play video games together.
Yeah. Totally agree. I mean, the general consensus, right, is that it's bad for kids, right? Even the term screen time has a negative
Yeah,
connotation when you're talking
for
about
sure.
kids. Um, it's a I don't know. I don't have the perfect answer, but it's a fine line to walk because they're going to grow up in a world where they have to be proficient at these things, right?
Right.
So you can't keep it away from them 100%. That's not healthy. But you don't want to be that parent who just has them glued to it all day long, right? So
Right.
our kind of consensus in our household, and it develops as we move on and they get older, and um, but screen time is great and can teach you a lot of things and help you learn words and stuff, as long as it's one, moderated, and two, you are participating with them while they do it, right? Like, it's one thing to let your kid play a video game and you're playing with him, and he's learning, you're learning, you're having fun together. It's another thing to have your 5-year-old gaming all day long as a way of not like having to deal with him, right? Like, okay, go play your Switch, and I'm gonna
yeah.
clean the
I'm
house.
busy. Go play your video game.
Right.
And I would also say it's also a balance of, again, not a father, so you can check me at the curb, right? But
newsflash, you don't change that much when you suddenly become a dad.
Yeah.
you're still you.
Yeah. I would say it's also a balance of like, are we watching Real Housewives of New York, or are we learning things while we're in front of the screen, right? And it doesn't have to be necessarily video games, but like some video games are good and they'll teach you how to do things.
Right. Like, our kids have learned to read.
Yeah.
At the ages of 4 and 2.5 by doing the interactive, like, that stuff is so good at teaching them certain things that you would never be able to do manually, right? It would be so hard.
Right. So I think that's also in the balance, right? Are we being effective with our time? If we're not being effective with our time in front of a screen, then maybe we can do something else.
Right. I think where you could definitely run into a problem is where you let your kid, like you were talking about, participate in mindless things, like letting them watch YouTube and the YouTube videos just roll one to the next to the next to the next.
Oh, yeah.
It is so not what you want. Like, no.
But it's so easy.
Right? It is. And they love it.
You just set them on the couch with a phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very easy.
It's so weird.
But at the same time, like, not you're not contributing time.
Right.
You know, to the kid.
It's not a healthy parenting technique, not to critique anyone, but my suggestion would be to participate with them when they have screen time. Like, do things with them, see how their mind works. It's really interesting to see a young kid look at an iPad and it has, apples and letters and colors, and they're just see what they come up with, because they will say some wacky stuff. Cool. And they'll be trying to put the apple on the horse, and the apple's riding the horse, and then he eats the letter E. They say all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah. Liam would not be very good at unpacking.
No. There is a pretty cool article on the Wall Street Journal that I'll throw here in the chat, and I'll put it on the YouTube description. But it's an article that kind of was a study about video games and kids' development. Keep in mind, this is for like older kids and teenagers, but they basically came out to the conclusion that video games might actually help cognitive development with teenagers, as long as it's in moderation, right? And that's basically true of all things in life. Yeah. So what they kind of discovered was that in moderation, teenagers and young adults would excel in a lot of, like you were talking about, like hand-eye coordination type stuff, cognitive tests, and real quick thinking type things, if they played video games in moderation. And then they found those things drastically decreased when those young adults and kids became, essentially obsessed. They took it to an extreme. They performed actually worse in some of those cognitive tests if they were constantly doing that. So it's kind of interesting read, but check it out if you get the time.
Yeah.
Cool, dude. Well, that's that for developing kids in video games. Lastly, we'll talk a little bit about PTSD in gaming. So this is kind of where I find myself, issues I'm kind of trying to deal with these days. So this is all my personal experience. Try not to get too long-winded with it because we're already got a long episode, but these are serious topics, so we don't want to cut you guys short. So if you don't know, I'm currently not flying. I've been disqualified to fly with the Air Force ever again, based on PTSD and anxiety type stuff. What we've kind of scratched the surface of over the last few months of therapy is I've essentially numbed a lot of my emotions my whole life based on childhood and whatnot. And that was for survival, right? Like being unemotional and having non-emotional reactions to things helps you survive. Like the fight or flight thing. When you encounter a dangerous event, right, your brain essentially shuts off the part of your brain that makes decisions and feels certain emotions. And so I was doing that to survive for so long that it became like ingrained in me. And so certain events that happened to me, whether that be as a child or in my military career, I just didn't have emotional reactions to them that I consciously had, right? And so those things started coming out in weird times when I was learning how to relearning how to fly the 238 here at Shepherd Air Force Base. And I was getting major anxiety like attacks while I was flying, and I was trying to cover them up and hide them. So that I could get through the training and start teaching kids. But it got so bad to the point that I was doing dangerous things while flying. And so 2 of them happened right in a row. And I went to my flight commander and I said, something's wrong. I need to stop flying for a little bit. And that kind of snowballed into going to talk to mental health on the Air Force Base. And eventually it got to a point where I needed to get admitted to a basically outpatient therapy program that I'm currently in right now, where we try to kind of figure out what's going on with me, and it's all through group therapy sessions. And it's kind of mostly taught me a lot about how I deal with emotions, especially, but also trauma memories. So things I'll say about gaming and what I'm currently been going through. I already alluded to it, but at my most difficult time, gaming lost with a depression. Gaming lost the joy that it once provided me, and that was one of my big indicators that something was truly wrong. And I kept telling Jen, like, I want to do things, but it just feels like work, even when they're fun things, right? Like I've been going through schooling, right, as well for 3D animation. And I used to draw like pretty much every day to kind of improve. And I went through months and months and months and months of no drawing. And Jen was like, why don't you draw anymore? And I was like, it just seems like a lot of work. And so I just started kind of noticing things that weren't quite right. And I had a good support system around me to tell me like, hey, we got to figure out what's going on. But I was very, very scared to tell anyone at work, right? Not just for the career implications and all that, but I was embarrassed. I'm surrounded by all these fighter pilots, right? Former, Eurofighter pilots, and F-16, F-15, F-22 guys, and here I am. I was already an instructor in the F-16 and been deployed, and I'm coming to the T-38, and suddenly I'm having all these issues with something that I've always just felt like I was naturally good at, and it was the actual flying, right? And it was because I was constantly thinking about things without wanting to. That's kind of what PTSD is. It's, at least from my experience, it's events that happen to you that you either don't understand when they're happening or you block out based on that survival stuff. And then later on, when your mind can no longer fight that stuff off, it starts coming out in little subtle ways initially, and then eventually, if you don't get a hold of it, it'll just take over and give you panic attacks and all that kind of stuff. Luckily, I'm not to the point where, like, you know, if you've ever been to a fireworks event and there's someone like scared because they've had events with explosions and bombing and all that, it's not to that type of level, but it's a much more, it affects me a lot when I'm sleeping or trying to sleep, nightmares, and just kind of replaying those memories. What I'll tell you that I've learned from these past few months of trying to figure out this stuff is that you can't do it. You can't man up. Like, I know that's what you've been taught, and you gotta deal with this stuff, and it sucks. I don't like to talk about emotions and bad events. I've always blocked that stuff out and just moved on. But you can't. Like, you will not survive it. I not that suicide is something that I would ever contemplate, but I truly now understand that path that I was walking down, or just kind of autopiloting down, I understand why some people would get off on the path to that end. And so that's a scary realization that when you think about, I don't know how to say this, but when suicide becomes something that you cognitively understand is an option, it's a sobering and scary feeling. So that's when I needed to find help. Not that I was thinking in that way, but I don't know exactly how to describe it, but the path thing is the best way that I can think about it. Yeah. So I'll take a break for a minute and see if you got anything to say. But Swift was there with me during my last deployment. Nothing crazy on that one, but some of the other guys dealt with some really crazy stuff. But yeah, PTSD is, and keep in mind, this isn't, a lot of people think that this is a military specific thing, but anyone who has experienced trauma can have PTSD, car crash, rape, just a traumatic event in your life that you maybe try to ignore or hide from. And it's a very insidious and powerful injury to the mind that you need to take care of, and that you need help to take care of, because you can't do this by yourself. It's kind of where I'll break at.
Yeah. Yeah, like, obviously it's sobering, and it's nice to hear you bring it up because, again, like we talked about earlier in the episode, people all over are dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
It's good to hear, again, hearing what you're talking about it, but please, it's been really nice to have Taze talk to me and talk to our group about what he's been going through. And again, I'll use the word sobering again because it is. It makes you realize, like, dude, if you're struggling with anything, like, please seek the help that you need. Please, um, sorry. Again, I'm tearing up now. Please go get the help. Please don't. I know, like Tay's talked about, um, suicide can seem like an enticing answer at a certain point, but it's not for a myriad of reasons. Your family, the people that care for you, that love you, your friends. So, um, yeah, just I know it's tough, and it's tough as a. Feel like it's less tough these days, but it used to be tough as, like, a man's man to
Right.
just push all the feelings down. Hopefully that's not the case anymore. Please talk to your friends and family, and there are multiple outlets out there for you to get the help that you need. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Thanks, man. It's yeah, that whole mindset of, boys don't cry, and I am the direct result of that whole mindset. Not saying like that was pushed upon me, but I adopted that at a very early age. Like I was talking to my wife about it, but any emotion that I have, whether it be joy, anger, sadness, fear, I express them. I don't express them very much. Like
Yeah,
even when I'm at my happiest, you can't really tell. Like I observe happiness more than I participate in happiness. To me, that's what joy is something that you get to like see and observe. But that's not how you should feel, and that's the result of many 30 something years of numbing all of my emotions. Because the sad fact is, when you numb one emotion, you numb all of them. That's how your brain works. You cannot numb sadness or traumatic events or fear without numbing your ability to experience love and joy and all of that. You may be able to do it for a time for specific ones, but eventually it's where I found myself. That's why it was hard to experience joy from things like gaming. That's why I never felt like I got angry, like nothing got my blood boiling. Um, it was every single emotion, and still to this day, I'm still trying to work through this stuff. I was not experiencing like most people do. So that's kind of where we found myself a couple weeks ago. But I will say recently I've had a really cool epiphany, and you kind of alluded to it, Swift, when you were talking about not necessarily meditation, but just like listening and just absorbing and not thinking. We were talking a lot about all these emotions, and it was a couple days after I kind of learned with the group about how our brain does that with numbing emotions. And I just was sitting in the car outside of therapy, listening to music before our session started. And I was eating this. If you haven't tried this, go get one. Starbucks has this coconut or lime frosted coconut bar. If you like key lime pie and like coconut flavor, I was trying to focus a lot on feeling emotions physically, like how I was feeling when I ate something or when I hear music, or like what I was physically feeling when I was something made me happy or whatever. And I was listening to this song just a random like EDM chill step song, and I just was like, felt like I was listening to music for the first time, and I felt like I was eating. I described it as I felt like my whole life I was consuming, not eating. I felt like I was hearing and not listening. I was observing and not seeing. Like all of my senses were also dulled. And that moment I had in the car, it sounds cheesy, but I was like tearing up just because I was like, this song is so beautiful, just the way that the melody's working. And this thing tastes so good. And there's different flavors in here and textures. And I wasn't just eating it to eat it. I was like savoring it. And it was like this epiphany that went off. So the last few days have been really, really good for me and the family, just kind of discovering all that stuff and feeling joy and anger too and sadness too. But I feel like I'm starting to tap into how to experience things again. But I will tell you, I haven't figured out PTSD. I'm not even close to figuring out how to, live with these thoughts and stuff. But we're working there, right? It's a work in progress. So
Always.
yeah. And I'll keep going for my family and friends, and I'm just happy to have a little bit of progress in the last week or so. But I've drawn this on for quite a bit. But if you're struggling with PTSD or any sort of trauma, just please reach out to someone so you can talk about it, because you cannot shoulder that weight on your own. Trust me.
Yeah, if you, and I know Taze knows this, but if you need, I know it's probably random to reach out to a stranger, but any of our friends, or like literally, if you're a stranger and you need someone to reach out to, please reach out to us. I'm, like I said, alluded to earlier, I'm a very emotional human being. I will cry with you. And yeah, that's it.
Cool, man. Like you said, if you're struggling, reach out, make a connection. Anything is going to help you. Yeah. And we're here to help as well. If you don't have anywhere else to turn to, you can find us Bonsai Gaming on Discord. And if you want to reach out on email, it's OMGpodcastGG@gmail.com. We'd be happy to talk to you and hang out with you, or just listen. We don't have to provide any answers. Obviously, we're not experts in any of this. We both, as we've told you today, have our own issues. But what we both can do is listen and just be there if you need someone. All right, sure, man. That's about as much of that as I can take. You good to move on?
I'm good.
All right. Thanks for the conversation with us, guys. And we will now move on to what we played for the week. Cool, dude. Mine is short and sweet. The only video game I played this week was Fortnite. And I might be done with it.
No, you can't give up.
I've had fun playing with you and the boys, but I have not enjoyed the actual gameplay. Like maybe I just need more time with it, but it's like frustrating. I feel like I'm trying to drive on the wrong side of the road in a different country. Like, I don't know. Maybe I just need more time behind the wheel, but
yeah, maybe.
It's a very interesting game because I love the aesthetic. I love how it looks. It's really enjoyable. I love what they do with all the pop culture references. I don't know how they do this. Probably because they make billions of dollars a month, but I do really love the actual like feel of the game. But the gameplay is something I'm having a hard time with. But maybe I'll find.
I mean, it's different for sure.
I have not found the stroke per se in Fortnite like I have in most other games that I pick up. But
yeah,
We've only been doing no build, which I will continue to only do.
But, yeah, hard pass on the build mode.
Yeah. I guess there's just a lot to learn, but it's been fun, man. I think maybe because I only played that all week, it was kind of getting frustrating toward the end of last night. I might need to sprinkle in some other stuff.
How to branch out.
Yeah. I didn't have a ton of time for gaming just because I was trying to get some stuff, good to go around the house and whatnot. But
yeah.
That's it for me, man. More to follow. I should have the Steam Deck here in my grubby little paws in the next few days, and then I'll have more to follow on that. Oh, one funny thing I did learn. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I got the Xbox Series X, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did say this on another episode, but I'm going through this major trauma because my TV does not support 4K 120 hertz.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
that's rough.
So I didn't even play a single game on that damn thing, but which I don't know why. It's not like I can't play at not 4K 120, but in my mind.
But to truly, appreciate it,
all right,
you have to wait and buy a new TV.
All right, dude. What'd you get into?
I'll keep this short and sweet. I played Fortnite with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm still enjoying it. I played a bunch of God of War, actually. I think I put like 4 or 5 hours into it this week, which doesn't seem like a lot for the week, but again, full-time job. Wife.
Yeah, that's a lot for you on one game.
That's a lot. It's still enjoying it. I actually looked quick side note, I looked at like the progression of the story, and I feel like I put like a lot of time into it.
Yeah.
And I looked into the progression of the story, and I'm like less than a quarter of the way through. And I was like, okay, tight.
That's cool though, because at least you didn't get. The problem with that is though, I do this a lot. Is I'll get like 80% of the way through a game assessed, and then I'll stop playing.
Yeah. No, I plan on beating it, but I got a long way to go, obviously.
Cool.
And then the third game I played, again, I didn't play too many either, but the third game I played was Valheim, and we can get into Valheim in a later episode when we're not, going a long time about all kinds of other stuff, but Valheim, I think, is great. I've never played Minecraft, but Easy said it sounds similar, where you're like looting, or not looting, but I guess looting,
right.
Like random things from the earth and building a structure and a house and all the things. Greg and I beat the first boss.
Oh, weird! It's got bosses.
Yeah, there's like 7, I think.
Huh.
But really enjoying it so far. Again, we can get into the nitty gritty later on, but
cool. I think is that game actually out, or is that early access?
No, it's still early access.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
But yeah, it's fun. It's kind of like I told Easy at work. It's kind of like what he says Minecraft is, where it's if you don't want to, you don't have to be in a fight or whatever.
Oh,
right?
Gotcha.
So it's kind of it's low key.
Not high action.
Do whatever you want. Build your house as grand as you want it.
Is it survival?
Are you? It is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This looks cool. I don't know why I haven't tried this.
Oh, it's very fun. I love it, and it's literally. I think I downloaded it on Steam. Hold on, let's see. Well, I think it's like 1.7 gigabytes.
Wow.
Total space. Like it's not, it's not what we're accustomed to as far as graphics and all that. It's like it's 3D, but it's whatever. The graphics don't really care, and you just kind of wander around the world.
I see. It's
a great time.
It's got that like pixelated kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. I have to check this out.
It's very cool. I'm enjoying it.
Like, so can we all play in the same thing?
Yep. Craig joined my world and taught me the ropes initially as far as how to upgrade weapons and your house and all kinds of stuff. So
cool. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that game.
Yeah.
And trying it out. All right, dude. Well, we've been going for 2 hours here, so we'll let you guys off the hook. But we'll go around the room. Anything else to say, Swift?
No, man. I think we nailed it.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on this serious but important topic. And like we said, if you need help, reach out. And cool. You can find us on OMG.podcast or OMG_podcastGG on Twitter and Instagram, and as well as send us an email at OMGpodcastGG@gmail.com. We'd be happy to hear from you. Send us your thoughts on what you like, what you don't like, if you're into 2-hour episodes or if you hate it. And you can find me streaming from time to time on twitch.tv/theStroke. and Swiftmida at twitch.tv/Swiftmida. You can also find our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you find your podcasts. And with that, we will leave you with one final thought. Just because you have to grow up doesn't mean you have to stop playing games. Game on, gamers, and we'll see you next week on One More Game. Swift, see ya.
See ya.